Hi, beautiful people. I am Tudos. I am the organizer of this extraordinary summit we call the Conscious Togetherness, and it is all about life and people's connection to life as such. Let me introduce you to one of my very beautiful colleagues, Susan Gale, who is the co-founder of the Place of Light. It is a center where people learn about spiritual things like energies and their intuitions and all the rest. But I am going to let her talk about it. She is a spiritual energy mentor. Hi, Susan.
Hey, Zaza, I'm so grateful for you having me here.
My pleasure, darling. Thank you very much for coming. So what are you going to talk about today?
Well, a lot of us, especially when it comes to intuition and spiritual and being conscious on that kind of level of consciousness that I think you're talking about, have a hard time having an open mind. Uh, we will write things off to be a coincidence or our imagination, or it just, well, it just came out of the blue kind of thing. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about having an open mind, and an
Sure.
open mind to both being connected and also an open mind to people who aren't connected. So just having an open mind. And we're going to take a really deep dive into one thing that I think prevents us from having an open mind.
Wonderful. So what if we start up talking about this open mind?
I can screen share.
Sure.
I'm not, I don't have permission to screen share.
Oh, really? Where you see technology. Hmm. Excellent.
There
Now
you
you
go.
are my co-host.
All right, you have the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I thought that it would be interesting to look at the definition of an open mind first. And open-mindedness is the willingness to search actively for evidence that goes against what we believe, goes against our plans, goes against our goals, and weigh it fairly to see how it is. And that's a very difficult thing for us to do. To listen to someone whose opinions and thoughts are very much opposed to us. For example, it's hard for me to listen to someone who says all this intuition kind of thing is the work of the devil and is wrong to do. And I have to really hear them to see what's causing them to feel that way, and then find little bits and pieces of in their speech to help them see that they do it too. You know, intuition is written right into the English language when we say I had a gut feeling or I got a bad vibe. And all of that are things about intuition. So that's how I have to listen myself with an open mind. But for the purpose of this is what our definition will be of an open mind.
Wonderful.
Well, we can practice having an open mind. This exercise is a very good one to do. But if there's someone like your child or your spouse or co-worker or someone who works for you or your boss, that you're always arguing with them about the same thing, try to put yourself in their shoes and write down 3 really good reasons why their point of view could be valid. This is not something you would ask a child under 16 to do, because people who are under 16 can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes. Their brain hasn't developed to be able to do that. But with adults, try to do that. And that's a really good way to kind of open up things and allow you to see another point of view that's different from your own. So if people want to practice this, this is a good way to start to have an open mind with people that you disagree with.
Yes, and you can learn from each other also in the process.
Yeah. So there are some things that prevent an open mind, and one of these is ego. Clearly, this person in this picture is paying attention to nothing but him or herself. Got the 4 selfies all set up and is just enamored of their own emotions, their own feelings, their own looks. We can never stop pleasing an ego. An ego is never satisfied. It always craves more and more attention. And if we try to feed the ego, we are not going to have an open mind, because it doesn't leave any room for us to consider an opposing point of view. So ego is a huge obstacle to having an open mind.
Sure.
Another one is what I call a thought constructed reality. And I have this picture of an accident because it goes with the story I want to tell. I was driving down a small road a couple of years ago when there was an animal in the road and it wouldn't move until I had to stop. And all along that road had been another car that was following me, maybe 5 or 6 car lengths behind. So I knew he had plenty of room to stop if I stopped. So I didn't even worry about him. I came to a complete stop. I beeped my horn. The animal still didn't get across the road. And it could, it was a bird. It was a bit a bald eagle eating some roadkill. And I'm sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden, bam, the car that was behind me ran right into me. Well, all that commotion made the eagle fly away, of course. But when I was talking to the man that hit me, he told me, well, I didn't think you were coming to a complete stop.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I clearly had stopped and had been stopped for about a full minute. He was so living in the reality that his thoughts had constructed that he didn't pay attention to what was really happening. And I'm so grateful for that accident, because to me, it's such a wonderful example of how we can truly live in our head and be totally unaware of what's really going on in front of us.
Sure.
So a thought constructed reality is really an obstacle to having an open mind, because what you have in your head might not even be true at all. And you're holding on to that belief and seeing the world through that belief, even when it's not happening. And even if you run into other cars because you believe it. So thought constructed realities and ego are 2, of course there are many obstacles, but those are 2 big ones. And then we come to the third obstacle, and this is the one I want to talk about a lot today, is when we have an attachment to the thought constructed reality. So we have this beautiful tapestry here. Somebody's created this beautiful tapestry and woven it all around them, but they are stuck in it. They are so attached to their beliefs and their thoughts that they are unable to move. They are unable to be clear and see what is really going on around them. And they cannot understand what other people are saying unless it fits into this pattern that they have created here. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is that kind of attachment. So we get an attachment when we want something to remain the same or always be a certain way. This happens a lot to some mothers when they want their children to always be their baby. And when, the children become teenagers, they are quite certain that they are no longer their mother's baby, but the mother just smiles and said, "You'll always be my baby." And the teenagers don't particularly care for that too much. They want their freedom, except when they don't. Then they'll go back to being a baby because it suits them. But
Sure.
when you want something that remain the same or always be a certain way, you have an attachment to it. And that's not always healthy. It's not healthy for children to be seen as babies, because one day they become grown-ups and they have to act as such.
That's true.
So attachments really keep us from moving anywhere. Just like this dog is attached to this pole. And most everyone who has a dog knows that this dog is going to keep wrapping itself around the pole until it can only lay down. And that's pretty much what our attachments do to us. They stifle our growth. They stifle our sense of wonder. It stifles our ability to experience life in a rich and full way, because we only want life to come to us in one way. And anything other than that, we deny or shut out. And so we miss so much.
Sure.
So people who are uncertain, people who aren't clear about what they believe in, people who aren't sure of themselves, people who just sort of take their cue from whoever they're around to be who they are, or people who are easily frightened, people who get scared of anything life has to offer them that doesn't seem to be what's familiar to them. These are the people that are more likely to form an attachment. And they want everything in a certain way. Now, this board is a beautifully organized, color-coded board. And you put that sticky note up there and it stays there, and it doesn't move until you choose it to move. But life is not like that. Life does not stay where you put it. Life is the flow of energy, and energy is always changing. If we have a world view that we want life to be like these sticky notes, we will be forever frustrated and have a lot of suffering in our lives. And this is the way that attachments can cause suffering, because life does not conform to our attachments. You with me?
Sure. It is totally true. It's very interesting how we always want everything the same way because we are frightened of changes. Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that everything is in constant motion. So it is not possible to have them the same way.
Yeah. For me, when I realized, came to an understanding of all this, it just, whoa, made me step back quite a few steps to take a look at myself and to change my own self.
Yes, we all have to do that from time to time.
The people who live off the land, the indigenous people, the first people, they know that nature is our teacher. And if we believe nature is our teacher, then we definitely know nothing stays the same. Nothing.
Yes.
You look at this picture, the tree is no longer living, but it has new plants growing out of it. It's decaying to bring nutrients for new life. The waterfall is never the same way from day to day. Sometimes there's more water, sometimes there's less water. Sometimes there's no water at all. it does not remain the same. If we wanted to come back and see the very same picture we saw the day before, we will not do that. Every season, the shoreline changes from the ice and the erosion and the falling of rocks and trees into the water. The stones are changing every moment as the water smooths them over and causes them to become river stones that are very smooth and rounded with no rough edges at all. Everything moves, lives, dies, and is always changing. Therefore, it is very illogical to form an attachment and want something to stay the same. So how do we know when we have attachments? We just have to look at how we tell our story, how we talk about our lives, how we talk about situations. And these are three very telling things. If you're saying, if only people would act this way, then everything would be right. Well, we don't know that. If everybody acted the same way, it'd be a very boring world, for one thing. But that means we have an attachment to everybody being the way we want them to be. Why can't it be like this? Well, you know, it's not like that because everybody has their own journey, their own lessons, their own things to learn, and we can't know what all those things are. We can't know the purpose of another person's life and what they're trying to figure out or avoiding trying to figure out. But it just because we think it might be good, it probably would not be. And I want this to last forever. Well, we've already established that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Have to think about our language and you know, as you're listening to this, think yourself about what are some of your thoughts on attachment language. What are some of the things you think or say that, like, you'll always be my baby, you'll always be my child? That's true, but you know, no longer are you that 6 weeks old baby that I had to hold and nurse and take care of and change diapers, thank goodness. So really pay attention to your own language because it will tell you where you're attached to things. So what do we do about attachments? Well, I don't know if you've ever tried to get sand off your hands when your hands are wet, but it's not an easy task. You know, the more you rub the sand off, it seems like the more it's stuck onto you. And attachments work pretty much the same way. They're very difficult to get rid of. They're very specific things you have to do. Usually what we have to do to get sand is to get our hands completely immersed in water and then not let them touch the sand again, unless we dry them off first. We can't, it takes forever. We keep wiping it off because there's always those 1 or 2 grains of sand that stick with us. So we're going to take a look at what we can do about attachments. So I'm just looking at 3 things today. Mindset, which can also cause an attachment, but it can also prevent one. Thought patterns, that can cause an attachment, but it can also keep you from having one. But the last one, being a clear mirror, prevents having attachments. And so we're going to go a little depth into each one of these things.
Yes.
Back in the 80s, I had this saying posted up over top of my desk. I was working with children, running school-age childcare in the summer camp. And this realization came to me as I was working with the children. There are no one and onlys, just one and only moments. So I needed to treasure them. Just because I had a wonderful moment with a child or a staff person or a parent did not mean that every time I saw them, I was going to have a wonderful moment. And it was not fair of me to want that or expect that or have an attachment to that expectation. To me, this picture shows a one and only moment. It's a priceless moment. You're there with the dog and your child, and it's peaceful, and you've got all this beauty to look at around you, and there's not a big crowd distracting you. But you couldn't recreate this moment. Tomorrow, your child may be cranky. The dog may not even want to go in the water, or may not want to come out of the water. It may be raining. You're not going to recreate this moment exactly like it was in this picture. So we treasure our one and only and understand that we cannot recreate it. That statement is a mindset. So because that's my mindset, I look at every moment I'm in as its own moment, and not something that I am going to attach to and try to recreate and have present for me all the time. If a person is really excited about applause, which is a very wonderful thing. I love it when I give a talk and people are applauding at different things you say. But if you go into every moment wanting to recreate that moment of applause, what are you going to do when it doesn't happen? You've set yourself up to suffer. So we just appreciate the times that we have it, and we're okay when we don't. We don't have to have a need. We don't have to have an attachment.
Very interesting.
I challenge you, people who are listening to this, all of Jaja's beautiful people who are seeking to have consciousness together, or to conscious togetherness. What are some mindsets you can create to prevent attachments? What are some ways that you can see the world, filter your experiences so that you don't form attachments to something being the same way all the time? If you're watching this on a video, just pause it and think about this for a few moments.
Well, actually, it is very exciting because think that people usually lack adventure, somehow, and they lack curiosity, because if they did have it, they would really like to see changes in life, whatever they haven't seen before, or feelings, whatever they haven't felt before. So it comes down to lack of information also, because you can only think about something you have it in your mind. If you don't have it in your mind, you cannot really think about it. It's very interesting.
So mindsets are created by thought patterns. I want you to think about, what are your very first thoughts when you're seeing this picture?
I see a guy who, as far as I can see, knowledgeable. I wouldn't say a wise man, but has some good information in his head. Also, I would say he's a modest person who has a belief system, but might not be attached to all the things in his life, only to the belief system though. I don't know, he is also a laid-back person. That's what I think.
Okay. What we know about him is that he wears a hat, he has a beard, he has on a shirt with patterns, and he's probably not he's probably in a public place. But anything else came from your thought patterns, unless you were reading the energy of this picture. Everything else comes from what your thoughts associate with what you saw. And yet we all do this, and we decide, well, now I know this person because my thoughts have told me what he is. And in reality, we don't know anything about him, except that he wears a hat and has a beard.
Sure.
For all we know, he could be the head of a really cool, nerdy, even that's an assumption, you know, multi-millionaire CEO. He could be somebody that's an artist. He could be anything. We don't know that. And that's why thought patterns can be very dangerous. Thought patterns are what create racism, sexism.
Yes.
All the isms come from our thought patterns. Because we don't know anything about the person we're thinking these things about. We know nothing about them. We're just listening to what our thoughts are telling us. Just like the guy driving the car. She's not coming to a full stop. So I'll just keep going. Oh my God, she had a full stop. No, he was listening to his thoughts and making his decisions based on his thoughts instead of trying to see what was really there. So we have to be very careful about our thought patterns because they prevent us from having an open mind. All of us have decided who he is, and none of us know anything. And so that's the opposite of having an open mind. An open mind, you say, I don't know. What the Buddhists call a no mind, a no thought. I don't know. I'm open to whatever I learn about him. It's tricky.
Oh, it is. It is a bit dangerous, though.
So the Buddhists believe that karma actually comes from our thought patterns. We can't have music from these keys. We can't have good music from these keys. They're totally right. But if we repair them, repair the strings, we can have beautiful music. If we change our thought patterns, we can also have beautiful music. And according to the Buddhist belief in karma. So thought patterns, at least to the Buddhists, are very important. And it also should be very important to all of us because as we saw from the picture before, they make us think things that we don't even know are true. And we believe it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the place before words. When we know something from the place before words, we know its energy, we know its truth, we know how it interacts with us. This is why almost, well, every indigenous person I know that follows tradition will hug people instead of shaking a hand. And the reason they hug is because then they get a sense of your energy. They see what's in your heart. They see who you really are. And they read your energy and feel your energy so they can know you. The you that they want to know has nothing to do with where you work, with what you have on, with what you look like, what you're capable of. It's who you are inside. And that's what they find out when we hug each other. We hug each other all the time here at the center. We hug when they come in, we hug when we leave. It was horrible during the lockdown when we couldn't do that. And we missed it. And we're just so grateful that we can hug again. But you can even take somebody's keys and hold them and know these keys from the place before words. And understand, well, what is this person like when they're driving? What is this person like when they're taking care of their keys? what are the experiences this person has had with the keys. You can read all of that off of their energy. That's the kind of thing that we do at the center at a place of light, is learn how to do these things so that we can know things from the place before words and know its true energy instead of what we think about it. Recently at a retreat, we took people around a town and we had them focus on certain buildings to see how they read the energy. And one young man, he said, I don't want to do the police station. I know what that's going to be like. We said, so see, now that's what your thoughts are telling you. You don't know what this police station is like. So he said, you're right, you're right. And he went and stood in front of the police station. He said, wow, they have a strong sense of justice in here. They really stand for what's right to do. And he was so surprised. Now, if we had stood in front of a police station in a big city, it would have been a different energy. But he made an assumption. He had an attachment to a belief about police stations, and so decided this police station fits my beliefs, instead of actually being open and knowing it from the place before words, knowing what its energy was instead of what his beliefs about it were. So that's another way that you don't form attachments, because you know every single place that you go and everybody you meet, everybody has their own energy. And we can't say what it is until we feel it. So thought patterns, again, affect how we reflect reality. We reflect, most people when they look at this picture say, oh, these people are going on a vacation or off to have a good time and they're carefree. She's got her feet stuck out the window and is just having a good time. There's probably a bunch of young people in there being a bit foolish. And what do we really know? We know there's a car with somebody's feet hanging out the window. We don't even know if the car is going anywhere. We make up this whole story from our thoughts instead of being a clear mirror to what we see. We see feet hanging out the window, and that's all we see. Anything else comes from our head and may or may not be true. We get attached to our thought patterns. So, if we want to end attachments, there's some things we can practice. And I like to use the word practice because when we say try, well, then we're going to either fail or succeed. When we say work on, then I'm either going to fail or succeed, or I get tired, because work implies you're going to get tired. So we practice having a mindset that lets us be open to the impermanence of things. We know it's not going to last, but so we enjoy it fully in the moment we're in. We don't stand behind our camera and take a video of a concert. Then we're having an interaction with our phone. We interact with the concert and we feel the energy of the music. We feel the power of the crowd. And then we have that memory in us forever that we can draw upon, instead of the memory of holding up a phone and looking through the lens. Another thing that we practice is not to have thoughts, not to have preconceived notions, as we saw from the pictures and some of the stories that I've told. Letting ourselves know about people, places, and events from the place before words. A lot of the current political things that are happening are more tolerable to me because I step back and try to see the whole thing from a master plan point of view. And then I see why this has to happen and the good that's going to come from it. And we just have to get through it and hold on to what we know is right and good. But I won't let myself get caught up in the immediacy of it, that everything is awful, because everything is not awful. There are too many people fighting to do what's good and right for all the beings for it to be awful. And the last practice that is helpful is being a clear mirror, so that we actually see what is happening. We don't filter it, we don't alter it by our own thoughts. And this is worth the practice, because when we have no attachments, we have no suffering. The Buddhists also say that attachments are the cause of all suffering. So, after all, when the Buddha was asked for what was enlightenment, he said there was no more suffering. And he didn't say anything else about it besides that. This slide, there we go. He gave no more information than that, other than to say there is no more suffering. And that's what enlightenment was to him. And if attachments are the cause of all suffering, which he also said, to have no attachments is to be enlightened.
Very interesting.
Well, this slide doesn't want to give up its place here. I guess we're supposed to think about that more. It definitely wants to be heard. I don't know what this is. Maybe I'm not supposed to make my pitch after all. This is strange. So, all right, there we go. You have to do some editing there. So, if all of this was interesting to you, I have a program that goes even more deeply into attachments, as well as the topics of self-awareness, knowing what you believe. Remember, we said that people who don't know their beliefs are more likely to form attachments, people who don't know who they are. Understanding how our lives are interdependent with all the other beings on the planet. Understanding what the practice of patience can do for us. Understanding what our present brings to the world, indeed brings to the whole universe. And being love. When we have an understanding of these things, then we can attain and maintain our inner point of calm. Some may say we even could become enlightened, but that's up to you. This is we spend 10 days on each strategy. There's a really beautiful, professionally made video on each one, along with a guidebook that you can use to do exercises. You can ask questions on our private Facebook page as we go along, and every week we have a Zoom call where we talk about these concepts, and you practice some exercises together. And sometimes people have questions, and I'll make up an exercise right there on the spot for people to do that will help them work through what it is that they're confused about. You also get to email me privately about questions that you don't want to put out for others to think. So you get a lot of support in this course. The website is placeoflight.net, Stand with Strength. And when you register, if you use the code Conscious Togetherness and you register before September 30th, you will receive a 25% discount on the price, which is normally $4.97. Well, that's what I had to offer to you today.
Wonderful. I think everybody should take this course once in a lifetime, because it is absolutely true that our biggest problem is attachment, because the suffering comes from losing something all the time, or somebody, or whatever we consider being the subject or object of our happiness. And it is an extraordinary offer Thank you very much, Susan. It's beautiful. And I think it would be a great benefit to everybody, every human being.
I'd like to point out something though. This course came out of the lockdown. This course came because I couldn't meet with my students face to face. So I had to develop content for them when we met on Zoom calls. And this all grew from that content. So how can I say the lockdown was a bad thing? It enabled me and provided an opportunity for me to put down all the things that I know about living life in a rich and full way, and to be able to share it with people. These are all things I live by every day. These are things I've studied for a good over 40, 50 years. I've been studying these things. And now I can share it with anybody who wants to. And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had the lockdown. So we can't just write something off as being good or bad. We just have to do what we can with what we have and make the best of everything we have.
Yeah, it is a great example of having an open mind, because usually people would say, oh, what a dreadful thing, we have this lockdown. And this lockdown is so precious in many ways. I mean, I created so many things during the lockdown, and as you are saying that you've done this extraordinarily beautiful sort of course for people, I think it is really precious. And I am sure you wouldn't have been able to do that before, because if there was not for the lockdown, you know, because we can focus on something and not doing other stuff we usually do without the lockdown or out of the lockdown. This extraordinary, yes, and I like that. Everything has a good side, and you just have to see it. You just have to grab the opportunity all the time too.
And you just have to pay attention to the good side of it. The other side is there, but we don't have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, but at the end of the road, everything has two sides. So what we see as a good side, this has a bad side also, but
yeah,
we cannot probably see that. Well, thank you very much, Susan. It was wonderful, and I hope that people would consider this wonderful course, because I think it would be a breakthrough in their lives. And I really urge everybody to take this opportunity. Thank you very, very much.
well, thank you for the opportunity to share this knowledge.
And well, I hope I see you soon in another platform. Take good care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.